My Lords, I thank the Noble Lord, Lord McConnell, for securing this debate. And this is, of course, a take-note debate of conflict, extreme poverty and climate-related emergencies and their impact on the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, my speech is in the nature of questions to the Noble Lord, the Minister, here for the Government, about what action the Government is planning to take in two specific areas where it could very clearly take action. And I begin with what's happening right now in Nigeria, Mali, Niger and the Democratic Republic of Congo, where floods have driven nearly 1 million people from their homes, killed more than 1,400 people. And currently Save the Children tells us that around 10 million children in the region are being kept out of their homes. Mali has delayed the start of the school year for a month because so many people are sheltering in those schools. In Chad, every province has flooded. And this is in a country where more than 40% of the population lives in poverty, and a country that's home to more than 2 million refugees. Those who question Britain's contribution in taking refugees might like to consider that figure. Now, these floods are in part a consequence of a natural weather cycle, but they're also worsened undoubtedly by the climate emergency. And what does this actually mean? Let's bring this down to a human level. In the capital of Mali, Bamako, Reuters spoke to a grandmother, Aya Kobla. Her fishing village has been destroyed. Many of the mud homes have been swept away. She told Reuters, "We've lost everything. Now my grandchildren are all sick, and those grandchildren are sleeping on makeshift beds in the very schoolrooms where children should be learning." Unless it be thought that this is just in one continent. We've seen in Latin America a year of record heat, floods and drought, the World Meteorological Organization reports. They've suffered tens of thousands of climate-related deaths in the past year and at least $21 billion worth of economic damage and the greatest calorific loss of any region. Now, it really has to be noted that nearly all the people suffering, people like Mrs. Kobla, have done nothing to cause the climate emergency. This brings up the context of loss and damage in the COP climate talks. This is supposed to be the compensation from those causing the damage to those who are mostly suffering from it. Now, COP29, which is fast approaching, is being touted as the climate finance COP. Yet the Heinrich Böll Foundation reports that rich countries are fighting the inclusion of loss and damage as a thematic focus of climate funding in those talks. Can the Noble Lord the Minister assure me that the Government is supporting the inclusion of loss and damage as a thematic focus? And I ask, what other plans does the Government have to advance the loss and damage agenda within COP and to deliver the funds that are so urgently needed? Now, on my second theme, the Noble Lord, Lord McConnell, spoke about business stepping up to support the Sustainable Development Goals. The Noble Lord said the City of London can make a real difference. I agree. It can make a real difference by cleaning up the rampant corruption that is robbing huge funds out of the Global South. The robbing of the Global South that began centuries ago and is still continuing apace. I'm going to quote the former Government Minister, Andrew Mitchell, who was the Deputy Foreign Secretary, who in May this year acknowledged that 40% of the world's dirty money throws through the City of London and the British Crown dependencies. 40%, my lords, and 5% of global GDP, IMF figures, is lost to corruption. Now, I'm driven particularly to this theme by a meeting this week of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Anti-Corruption and Responsible Tax. The topic of the session was Bangladesh and the return of stolen assets. We heard from Professor Mushtaq Khan from SOAS that Bangladesh has lost an estimated 50 to 100 billion US dollars. We heard from the Central Bank of Bangladesh how desperate they are to recover this money and how difficult they expect it's going to be. We heard very directly from journalists from Al Jazeera about how the money has flowed right into this city right here, right now. Now, it's not, of course, that people aren't trying to do something about this. I note that a group of anti-corruption NGOs wrote to the Foreign Secretary on the 3rd of September. They had 3 key recommendations: a surge in the resources for the National Crime Agency's International Corruption Unit to allow it to prioritise the urgent work in Bangladesh and elsewhere, greater external help for the interim government of Bangladesh to allow it to identify stolen assets, and collaboration with key allies of the UK to identify targets for potential sanctions and visa bans. I quote Susan Hawley, the Executive Director of Spotlight on Corruption, who said, "The UK really needs to put its money where its mouth is." Now, I note that it has been released a letter in response to that NGO letter, a letter from Catherine West, the Minister for the Indo-Pacific, dated the 10th of September. And it set out a list of all of the existing organisations and structures that are in place, that have been there for many years, and that haven't stopped this rampant pillaging of the assets of Bangladesh. And the letter concludes, "We share your concern about the need to support Bangladesh. We will continue to work with the interim government in Bangladesh on their specific requirements, including working with civil society, political parties and international partners." So, my Lords, my direct question to the Noble Lord the Minister is, what is the government actually going to do about this stolen money? Now, I think I need to tie these 2 issues that I've raised together. Bangladesh has a population of 161 million people. It's the 8th most populous country in the world. It is also a country that is acutely vulnerable to the climate emergency. Tropical cyclones now cost an average of $1 billion a year. Sea rise means that saline intrusion is affecting the drinking water and the irrigation water of 20 million people who are frequently forced to drink unsafe surface water as a result. One projection from the World Meteorological Organization suggests that 1 in 7 people within Bangladesh could be displaced by the climate emergency by 2050. But Bangladesh, of course, also needs power. It needs renewable energy resources. And I quote a study from the Frontiers in Energy Research from 2018, which looked at the mean capital cost of a power plant in Bangladesh, which was twice that of a global average. Bangladesh desperately needs investment, and it needs support, and it needs us to stop robbing it, to return the money that has been stolen through the City of London, the money that is being held right around where we stand today. Let's deliver the possibility for the people of Bangladesh, the people of the world, which means not just aid, it means not just loss and damage finance, it very much means a transformation of our own society.